PJ, you're on mute.
Okay, today we have an awesome podcast, and we call it Who We Serve. And we're going to focus on the real estate professional. The point of this podcast is really to kind of shed light on not only how our services as an NRCI member impact the real estate transaction, but also give our valued real estate pros an opportunity to kind of pour into our members and give us some feedback, potentially collaboration on how we can serve them better. In addition, if there's anyone watching this who's a prospective client who's either buying or selling a house, or maybe another real estate agent or broker who is interested in the services that we offer, they can get kind of a behind the scenes look at what it is that we do to impact the transaction. So today, I am very thankful for our panelists. We have 4 awesome people: Dave, Keith, Jim, and Sharon. They all bring their own wealth of expertise and knowledge into the real estate community. And I very much appreciate you guys carving out some time to pour into our members. So if you don't mind, if you can quickly go around and introduce who you are, the brokerage, maybe your specialty or experience level, and if you've had, any sort of experience with NRCI members in the past. So Dave, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, David Silva, Coldwell Banker Realty. Been doing this 23 years and did plenty of the REOs. Now doing the residential 1 to 4 units. And I actually have had some of these experiences, so it's going to be interesting to talk about and I'm sure fun to chat. But again, David Silva, Coldwell Banker Realty. And if you need to find me, you can find all my information on the web at givemearing.com. Thanks.
Awesome. Jim, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, Jim Farbaniec, Domo Real Estate. I'm the broker owner, formed in 2018, but I've been working in residential real estate since 2011. I started in Corona Del Mar, worked with Rogers Realty, and we formed Belia Properties. And then I branched off and formed my own brokerage. And then but prior to that, I worked for the Irvine Company, retail properties division. And we cover South Orange County. We help people with all price ranges, leases, purchases, sales, and all that. So yeah, happy to help and answer any questions.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Keith, go for it, bud.
All right. Yeah, Keith Thomas. I'm a broker here in Southern California. I manage at Redfin, recently purchased by Rocket Companies. I've been in the business now for 21 years and close hundreds of transactions here just locally. And then the beauty is that, I get to manage about 190 different agents from Central Coast all the way down to Southern Orange County now. And, at scale, in a completely different type of model. And I love working in the real estate community with all these other real estate professionals that you see on here. So looking forward to being a service to our vendors and partners out in the field, like our roofing partners.
Awesome.
Worked with PJ in the past. He's helped me on a couple of transactions when I was out in the field. And, since then, his team of agents have helped multiple my agents, sometimes known and sometimes not. And I think the more intentional that we could get through this type of communication and interaction, the more synergies that we could have going forward for both us as well as our consumers.
Absolutely. I love that. We're all about relationship and kind of keeping that connection because we're really all on a team here. We want to support you guys. One of our taglines is we help real estate pros close deals when roof related issues come up. And so that's our goal. So thank you, Keith. Miss Sharon.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Grimes. I work with Berkshire Hathaway in Corona Del Mar, Newport Beach area, and have been in real estate just under 100 years. So long, in fact, that now I no longer have to take the test.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me. Just pay your money. Don't take the test. So anyway, look forward to that if you're in the business that long. And I look forward to sharing the experiences, which have all been positive, with roof inspections and the difference in finding the real pros and getting someone who's not a pro.
Awesome. Well, as you guys can tell, there is a wealth of knowledge and expertise in this room and years of experience, and they all bring their own value. So really what we want to do is kind of just have a conversational question and answer session. I'll ask some thought-provoking questions, and if any of four of you want to share an experience, we would love to hear it. And feel free to just hop in and see where the conversation takes us. But first, I want to kind of briefly recap what the LeakFREE process is all about as it pertains to the real estate industry. Typically, we get called out during, the inspection period, and we go out and do a leak-free inspection. We inspect 5 zones: interior, attic, exterior, perimeter, and rooftop. And we look for 3 main things. Is the roof currently leaking? Does the roof have a likelihood of leaking? And can that roof be repaired should a leak occur during that certification period? So the leak-free inspection is to establish the condition of the roof system. And then a leak-free roof certification is a warranty against future leaks. So that's it. My first question is if one of you can kind of briefly highlight, what does the real estate transaction kind of look like, or what's involved with that, from like accepting an offer or getting your offer accepted to the closing table? And where does the inspections fit into that?
Hey, Paul, this is Keith Thomas. I thought I would, although not give a specific story out the gates, I did want to kind of highlight some of the change in the climate and the market conditions that agents and consumers are facing. I would say a couple of years back, a lot of consumers were kind of propelled through the process of a transaction on their own, almost like it was like FOMO, like if they didn't move, and that's why they were competing. And the market was moving very quickly, values were going up, and regardless of condition, I think people were jumping in. And then fast forward to today, the market has slowed dramatically as it relates to rising inventory rates, affordability, and you have a much more discerning consumer out there that is paying, in their minds, top dollar for something, even if it's of a great value. And you're starting to see more of the consumer really nitpick. And we have some of the highest deal failure rates at scale, even across the nation, not just in SoCal, but than we've seen in just the recent years past. And so having a partner like in roofing is so important. We work in many communities like, I'm in South Orange County, like in Mission Viejo. I mean, you have a lot of 1960s, 1970s homes where consumers that have stayed in those homes for, like, say, 25 plus years have never done anything to it. And buyers are ready to pick that apart and could really exploit a seller, and if it's already hard enough to get it into escrow, and then it's another money grab afterwards, and or just deal failure where we can't move our consumers to a better life to get through the transaction, this becomes more and more important to be able to address concerns up front. And then lastly, the insurance piece has become so out of control in some cases, like in states like Florida, but it's coming to California. And the roof is a big one as to why people get dropped. And that's a concern where we got to bind that stuff in some cases up front. And having that type of confidence in, especially your first line of defense, like the roofing, becomes so important. Agents haven't been as aware of that because of the changes going into this year. And so even having the partnerships with, the roofing professionals and other vendors like insurance professionals, collaborating like more regularly, help avoid these type of pitfalls, if you will. So I wanted to just kind of throw that out there because the landscape from what we've seen from our end has changed. It's more important that you have to be, as a real estate agent, a good real estate agent, a star of the show, and be the guide and trusted expert. And that means knowing all the resources that consumers need, both buy side and sell side, to find success for your customer.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely big picture. And I believe it will continue to change as the years unfold. So when it comes to inspections, whether it be pest inspections, your general home inspection, a specialty inspection, where does that fit in the overall transaction? And is there is there value when it comes to negotiations as the result of those inspections?
Well, I guess I can just touch on that one too. When we have the home inspection done, they're coming out now on tile roofs and things like that with drones. So before, they might not have gone up there. They might have just got on a ladder and taken some pictures with their hand up in the air, but now they're actually using drones. So I think that we're going to be more into this idea here of doing the roof certifications and getting those going, because we are getting those drone shots with slipping tiles, and you can see where the asphalt shingles worn out, or maybe it's something like that coming up that they are concerned with. So I think that the temperature of roof certifications are coming more likely now than before.
So basically, to kind of reiterate what you're saying, is the home inspector, who is a generalist, is now doing a little more because of drone technology and exposing some potential issues that previously they wouldn't have been able to inform their client of.
Absolutely, yeah. We got one right now. It's in Placentia, and they did pull the drone on it. It has some slipping tiles, but the buyers weren't so concerned with it at this time, which is good. Not good for you guys to come out, but they're going to accept the slipping tile like it is. If they would have called for some type of certification, you'd be the first call we make. So it's nice to have you in our back pocket, ready to go.
Absolutely, and it's all about networking and knowing the right person to call when the need arises. There's a
So I
stat.
start off a little differently when I'm working with clients. I think a general inspection is a must, but I also tell them that they need a certified roof inspector, as well as somebody who puts a camera down a drain and looks at the plumbing, because those are things that you cannot see, and it's worth, I don't care whether it's $250 or $500 or whatever the inspection is, it's much less than any repair that they're going to have.
Yeah, I agree. I bought a house one time. I didn't get it scoped. It caused an issue when my kids took a bath, and I said I'd never do it again. I'd always get it scoped. Next house I bought, I didn't get it scoped, and the same thing happened. So definitely.
So we should buy you a scope for your birthday.
I need yeah. That's it. Jim, you wanted to say something.
Oh, you had asked earlier about the general process, kind of from a very basic level. Obviously, buyer makes an offer, you get acceptance, then there's a lull period where they start their inspections, and generally they start with a home inspection and maybe they do a sewer line inspection. And a lot of buyers, they're cost conscious, and they don't want to spend too much money on the inspections. And then roofing is one of those things where I've encountered the roof inspection pricing is kind of all over the place. So some people will do it for free, some people will do it for $350, and then people are the buyers looking at this and being like, well, the home inspection doesn't really show much, but the home inspector is not a roof inspector. And it's I think that's the thing. You could have, say, for example, you had 3 different roof inspections and 3 different quotes. They would be most likely all over the place. There wouldn't be much uniformity to them. So I think that's one of the biggest issues too. And in California, it doesn't rain that much, or it hasn't rained that much for a long time. So you can have issues, but then you just deal with it for a long time. And then for my own personal experience, we bought our home when I wasn't a broker, and my mother-in-law was the realtor, and she did the inspections, and everything passed for the roof. And then we moved in, and then my wife and I were in bed, and we felt the drip on our foreheads, and we're like, oh, great. So we called the roofer out and researched some roofers. They came out and did some things, and it kept going on and on. And I think the biggest issue was our roof was never installed properly. And decade and a half later, I was talking with CertaRoof and Paul, and he came out and inspected, and he said, yeah, your roof basically wasn't installed properly. And I said, well, we don't have any active leaks. And he's like, well, it's coming down the side of the house. So then we had them do a re-roof, and we only had one issue by the chimney, and I think it's the way the chimney was installed. water would pool there, but they came back, part of their leak-free guarantee, and they fixed it. And but I think that's something where there's very little uniformity with roofing, and in general, like, and most people don't know much about roofing, just like HVAC, or do they have much interest? So I think that's a big issue too. And like, when the consumer doesn't know much, and even agents don't know much about roofing, it makes it difficult to educate. So I think that's kind of what you're trying to do with your organization and then also your business.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right where, you know, you say it's kind of all over the place, not only scope but also pricing, and that's kind of why we're in business, is to set a standardized process and procedure for a roof inspection. You look for these things, and then there's also national standards when it comes to pricing the inspections. That kind of leads into the next question, but Keith, go ahead and hop on, bud.
Yeah, I was going to share a story about, so they were talking about different parts of the process, and the team here has highlighted a lot of it, like within the transaction. I have to say there's a lot that comes up after the, you know, the sale as well. And I think what's been really nice, just like home warranty, we've brought this up with like the roofing warranty elements, because a lot of times, you know, consumers have just closed with the aged roof. And as a real estate agent, being the resource, not just through the transaction, but to be, you know, you're like, you know, when you buy the home, you buy the community. And a lot of times, you know, people that are coming at least, if they're not selling, they're, you know, they're going to be probably in your area. And so you being the real estate resource for all things has really helped build a loyalty and referral network for a lot of our agents, including that the person that you go to first before you go to your roofer, your plumber, or anybody else, right? And so I think that it takes some of the peace of mind, which is really big on kind of like the insurance piece that the certifications help with, have helped our agents to be able to direct consumers, and especially if they're not ready to replace a roof. There's so many consumers that are so cost conscious, like this is a great way to go to get it kind of certed, fixed where it needs to be for now, and then a transparent communication for budgeting of where they need to be in the future. And that's such an invaluable resource that we have to be the go-to real estate resource and somebody of value, so we also can help them in the future, but also with their needs in between, because we have these relationships with you know, organizations and professionals like your team.
Yeah, business is all about relationships, and relationships take time to build. And then on the back end, you're kind of mentioning like after close, there might be issues to develop later on that, as Jim brought up, he had a roof certification, there was a leak, and we came back out and fixed it. So, you know, there's a process there, ultimately providing the clients with peace of mind even after the close.
But I think as a business professional in real estate, from the real estate agent standpoint, why it's so important to also continue to have that relationship where the roofing professional stays in front of or with the real estate agent is because we need those resources and to have a go-to, because those situations do, you know, come up a lot, but it helps fuel our business. I would say our repeat and referral business converted a 67% higher rate than anyone who's like newly coming in and purchasing with us, say through redfin.com or, you know, a different medium like Rocket, you know, pre-approved, ready to go. But essentially, you know, as that you said, like the relationship thing could be years. And when you think about your business more exponentially, where it's not just a transaction, it's a relationship, then, well, it's these type of avenues that agents with our relationships in the industry help us build our business. So I just wanted that to kind of sink through to the other professionals watching this, as like how important it is for us to be able to, you know, have our relationship so we could build our business, you know, point our consumers to where they need to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So from your guys' perspective, you know, Jim brought up a wide range of different types of roof inspectors. What sets NRCIA members apart from the other inspectors who maybe offer a free roof inspection?
Quality, knowledge, quality, and certification. What people have to realize, and especially it's on we, the realtors, to educate our clients, that licenses are not required to be an inspector in the state of California. There's no education required to be an inspector in the state of California. So anything that you're going to run into, you have to have somebody who has a knowledgeable background and has a great guarantee, and somebody that has been worked with for a long time. And there's just a certain group that I recommend to my clients. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I've sold everything from foreclosures and houses to $15 million houses on the Bayfront. And you have to absolutely represent the client, because it is your reputation that's at stake.
Yeah, that's good. Keith.
Yeah, I think this goes to the Sharon hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think you have to refer and highlight with value, because, you know, it's part of your reputation as well when I think things come up later. You know, I think our number one litigation element that we've seen over the last 20 years, you know, is disclosure, regardless of it being, say, the seller's fault. Like, usually the attorneys go after all of us. But essentially, it's more the peace of mind, I would say, is that, you know, understanding that there's other people that might give you a free quote, and you can go for cheap, or you can go for actual peace of mind where the piece of paper means something, right? Like, and you can then share your stories and experiences, like such as what we heard today from Jim about, you know, people coming through. It's just like having insurance. Like, there's no reason to self-insure here and come up with problems later. I like to say the difference in real estate is not just getting through the transaction, but how we leave people feeling. And literally, surprises usually are the worst thing that can come up for a real estate experience for somebody when they're surveying, you know, an agent. And it regardless of who it was, like, real estate agent is at the front of that thing. And when those surprises come up, we're usually the first person that kind of gets hit, you know. So I say all that because, again, it comes back down to like what Sharon was saying. If we can set the expectation and refer with value as to like what you're going to get for, out of it, instead of like just going for cheap and easy, you know, you want to go for quality and peace of mind, and, you know, something that people are going to stand behind and be around. I've met tons of roofers, people that aren't even licensed, that come out and do stuff for cheap. And then that's what you get out of it too. You know, there's actually no leak-free guarantee. It's just like a Band-Aid that ends up leaking anyways. So, and I can share one story to that. We actually had somebody have one of those type of roofers go out, and to, I think it was Jim's point about it doesn't rain here a lot in SoCal. Well, finally, after like 8 months of it not raining, and it rained, literally getting the phone call, there was water coming into a microwave of all things in one of our consumers' houses. And it had to do with, putting on the wrong vent with the roofing at where the initial leak was, where they used unlicensed labor and a roofer that ultimately was nowhere to be found when you wanted him to like stand behind his work. So,
yeah. So kind of touching point on like, you know, how our services impact the clients and ultimately providing them with peace of mind or roof assurance. Does anyone have like a real life example of when a roof certification has either helped save a deal to get it to the closing table, or provided that new homeowner with a guarantee after close?
Go ahead, Paul, but you need to unmute yourself. I think Paul's talking, but he's muted.
Yeah, I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Real briefly, I don't want to take up too much time, but this is awesome with this handful of realtors and brokers. I own a little business, roof and rain gutter cleaning, maintenance, and repair. To Sharon's point, to all your points, I give realtors listings. I'm a hustler. I network. I want their business. I have saved people money by just going up there and telling them, you wash your car, you brush your teeth, you dust your furniture, but you do not do anything with the roof. I'm trying to earn their business in the future to keep the roof clean, flossing the flashings, if you will, valleys, behind chimneys, skylights, around vent pipes. Mud builds up. Mud is the biggest problem from a dusty roof. Everybody thinks leaves from trees are the problem. Dead wrong. It's mud from a dusty roof in the gutters, in the flashings, and a lot of you guys know this. Maintenance is the answer. And then I offer guarantees. When I get paid, I make good money. And I offer guarantees to the buyer that my warranty for the seller for doing the work will go on to the buyer, and so on and so forth. But just to throw that in there, you wash your car. You're not going to show up to a property with a dirty car. That roof is got to be cleaned on a regular basis. I pressure wash moss off of roofs, but the main thing is the information.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Paul. So
Absolutely.
going back to the question, has there been a roof certification that's helped close a deal or provide that peace of mind or roof assurance after?
Absolutely. Yes. We actually had a property a few years back where there was a problem with the roof, and we had some stains up on the interior of the attic, and they called it out, and they needed that roof to be certified. They actually wanted the roof replaced, and we said, well, let's get a certification done on it first, and they were good with that. So as long as it held up, we got the certification in, everybody went forward with the closing. So yeah, definitely, absolutely, 100% works.
So that goes to our tagline. You know, we help real estate professionals close deals when roof related issues come up. Sounds like the buyer wanted a new roof, and you typically represent the seller, and
Yes, sir.
you provided a certification and you brought everyone to the closing table.
That was it. Done deal. Once we got the certification, they felt a lot better that at least they had a couple of years to save up for what they wanted to do and choose the roof they wanted after they do their painting to the fascia and everything else to match up with the neighborhood. So it gave them some time and a lot of relief.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go for it, Keith.
Yeah, I had one actually with your team where the buyers' names were Eric and Amanda Watkins, and I was helping them sell a home in Brea, and they moved to Irvine, and they were moving to Racket Club, and it was a very expensive purchase for them, young family, 2 kids. And you can imagine like this being their biggest purchase, and getting into what was going to be their family home because they were expanding their family. They were very cautious. And, these home inspectors, we heard it earlier about like the drones and stuff. Well, we have home inspectors too that are also shooting the infrared guns, finding moisture spots, and so really taking a lens even through the walls and in the attic. And sure enough, had found an issue in the attic. And ultimately, these consumers were not educated, and why would they be, right? Into roofing and what it meant. So like they were ready to like go find a perfect home, which, as we all know in real estate, is unless you're buying like new construction with that type of warranty, many cases a resale home is not going to be perfect, and there's got to be some compromise. So, but I found that education and peace of mind helps with that, and so we actually had your team come in. It was on 3782 Andale Way in Irvine. And sure enough, what's so cool about this is that your team did just that. They didn't have to replace the roof. There were some tile elements that in your certification, there was also repairs that were made. So in terms of saving the deal, it made it easier, more digestible for the seller to fix it. Especially because it has this weird back end where it slopes in the front, but in the back, there's a flat spot. And there were some issues around there. And so you guys were able to actually fix what needed to be fixed, but then provide the peace of mind, like the roof is good and it's going to, and we actually got you covered at least for this. I can't even remember the time period, but ultimately it was that element to where, and help educate them through the process. Like great roofers are also, I think, non-alarmists, and like, this is normal. Like it's not if, it's when, and this is how we address it, right? And so, and then if there's anything that comes up in the future, we got you. Right. So it ended up moving it to close because it made it more digestible and negotiable for the seller to do it, as well as the buyers to have the peace of mind and understanding of what was happening. And get this, 15 years later, we've done 4 transactions with the Watkins,
That's awesome.
as their family has continued. So, and this was kind of at the start of it with their first sell to buy situation. So wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's a great success story.
I think it's important to also recognize the fact, I don't know about the rest of the realtors, but probably a third of the transactions I do both sides of it. And personality wise, I always seem to draw attorneys, accountants, and engineers. So they're very precise, very picky, detailed people. And I remember an instance where Paul's company saved us and made everybody feel very comfortable. And it was a property on Lido Isle on the bayfront. And the homeowner is a builder and has a chain of homes. And so anyway, long story short, the buyer wanted to make sure that everything was in good shape. And so I suggested a roof inspection, and they came in and not only inspected it, but found a couple of places that the tiles needed replacing, and then we got the guarantee as well. So I never had any calls, no complaints. Everybody was happy. And I have to say that's happened to me probably 20 times over all the years that I've used the company that Paul represents.
That's awesome.
Am I able to say sort of roof?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay, it's a commercial.
Yeah.
And I recommend you to all my realtors who ask me.
I appreciate it. I get texts from you all the time saying, hey, I just referred you out to this person. And just like you guys, when you're trying to serve your customers for that repeat business, you know, our members are doing the same because we're all about relationships, and every job, you know, we strive to have it be our best job. And if you continue that and have world-class customer service, then the referrals follow. So kind of hitting on a bunch of those points, like, you know, transparency, education through transparency. You remove the hard sales process that you would get with a free inspection. You're just out there to serve and educate, and the goal is to provide them with peace of mind and essentially help save this deal, because you guys have been investing all of your time and effort in getting people to the closing table. You know, there's been times in my career as a roof inspector where people aren't happy with me because I report on stuff and they call me a deal breaker. But in reality, I just report on what I see. Keith, you bring up the thermal imaging stuff, and all of you know, the reason why we have to be so detailed goes back to litigation. If we don't catch this stuff as an inspector, we're going to get sued. And so, you know, we get blamed if we're not as detailed, and then we get blamed if we're too detailed. And so it kind of leaves us in a unique predicament. But ultimately, that's why the process is there. And we want our clients, our mutual clients, to make informed decisions on the real estate purchase. So, Keith, go for it.
Yeah, there's another point that you just kind of made me think about, especially from the broker side of me, from the risk management. If consumers, like Sharon was talking about, we have a lot of engineers and attorneys that we represent as well. And I would say that if you really line item your inspection report, which can be alarming as well, you know, it also is like further evaluation is needed. Like there's a disclaimer against the home inspector, because again, you know, they don't even have to be licensed in the state, but that's like passing the buck back onto the consumer, right? Where I think like with Sort of Roof, like you're taking on that burden instead of the consumer. So even educating them there, because we'll even go as far as offering their options on, you know, inspections because of the findings, especially when they're seeing those things in the inspection reports where it's like further evaluation is recommended, you know, by, you know, that professional in that trade. And, you know, another opportunity for us to be able to bring up, you know, the appropriate people to be able to do that in such a way that is going to help us get to the closing table, especially when, you know, it could open up a can of worms, you know. So wanted to share that as well, because there's times where agents will get, you know, like receipt for reports. And if the consumer's then signing off on all that stuff and it's falling back on them, you know, that's where I think the peace of mind also comes in handy and doesn't fall right back on the consumer and or us. So you get the professional involved, but you know, you got to be able to shoot them straight. And again, I think working with professionals such as yourself that are like non-alarmists, but like educators, And then setting the proper expectation with us and our clients helps, you know, that relationship, and then ultimately get to the finish line still. But that is an element that comes up a lot actually from our home inspectors, is like, they can only go so far, and their reports even say it if you actually got that detailed. So our engineers are the first one to bring it up.
Yeah, they're really good at referring and deferring to limit their liability, and like you said, pass the buck. But where, you know, that's the difference between a general inspection and a specialty inspection, is we're telling you what is actually an issue or not. A lot of home inspector reports actually mislead, sometimes unintentionally. And it just is lack of expertise, really, what it comes down to. We have a few minutes left.
I have one more point to that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if on the inspection stuff too, there's a lot of inspectors out there, and hopefully these agents here haven't encountered them, but there are alarmists like that actually pride themselves on Yelp about literally being so thorough that they do kill deals to help them avoid, and they get like 3 or 4 inspections out of that consumer by the time that they actually get to a closing. Agents hate that because they're again, they are a generalist and they're not specialized, but they're giving opinions as if they are. It's really scary. Anyways, I want to throw that out there too. Like, we have to be wary of, you know, who consumers may be bringing to the table when they may not take our direction at times too. So having, you know, people like CertaRoof in there is also peace of mind for me as an agent to have second opinions.
For sure. There's been countless times where property inspectors will say a roof needs to be replaced, and in fact, it's got 10 years left. Or the vice versa, they say it's serviceable and that thing should have been replaced 3 years ago. And so those types of comments, you know, can mislead the consumer without getting a specialty inspection. Jim, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I think the roof inspection has to be cost effective for the buyer. A lot of times the buyers, you can't, our philosophy is to help educate, but we can't force a buyer to do something they don't want to do. So when you're stacking up, doing the home inspection, you want to do a sewer line inspection, and then you're like, well, what do you guys think about doing a roof inspection? It'd really be beneficial. They're like, no, we're good. And you can't force them to do it. So I think if you have a roof inspection, just like we don't charge, most people don't, agents or brokers don't charge for doing a listing presentation. You're trying to get business. So if the roof inspection is cost effective to the buyer, that would incentivize them more, because I think even if any buyer went online and tried to research different types of roofs, different types of issues, it would take, they wouldn't really know where to go. So even having like a basic guide, like a, you know, color by numbers, or something with illustrations that shows people the different types of roof, whether it's, you know, a composite roof, whether it's a concrete, whether it's clay, and what can be issues associated with those things. So like a couple of years back, we had CertaRoof come out and look at a home built in the 60s, and this place had roots going through the concrete, and I thought for sure the roof was thrashed. But at the end of the day, they did their inspection. They said the roof's in good shape, and I did this as the listing agent, and we just use that as a disclosure for buyers coming in, because we were selling it as is. I mean, obviously each home is sold as is, but in this case, this seller didn't want to do any repairs. So I think part of the education is having things be cost effective for the buyers, and because they don't know much about roofing. So then like you have to incentivize them somehow versus not. I guess that's the point.
Yeah. That's great feedback. Okay, go for it.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say that I think it's important when you're working with buyers to educate them on how important inspections are as a protection for them in buying any property, and to have them know that you count what they're buying as a big investment for them, and that you want them to be satisfied and happy. And maybe that's after 30 years. I've never talked to an attorney or had anybody threaten a lawsuit against me all these years in real estate.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting perspective, because while I agree with you, you guys as the real estate pros are the first ones to be in contact with these consumers. So we don't have direct access until you
Right.
guys refer us out or have that conversation. So now we're kind of moving into like, how can NRCI members, CertaRoof included, but our other members, foster stronger relationships with real estate professionals that you guys then refer us out, or we can provide you with resources to better navigate those conversations.
I think
Well, I
that
know that we have
oh, go ahead. I'm
different
sorry, Sharon.
speakers.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Sharon.
No, you go ahead, David. I apologize.
Oh, I was just going to say that Keith hit a point earlier in the conversation that, the temperature of sales have slowed down a little bit. And I think that we're going to see more of this. I think we'll have opportunities to actually do roof certification. I think it's good that you're doing this with us, because you have to be sparked to remember these things. I mean, a lot of these things we haven't really had to use recently, but I think that's going to be more relevant coming up in the future of sales because of the roof age and the homes that were built in our area in Orange County and around here. So I definitely think that it's going to be more coming up as far as certifications, and I'm glad that we're doing this here, because it kind of just brings to light again what we need to share with our offices as well.
Yeah, that's good.
I just wanted to add that I think it's important for people to go to office meetings and introduce yourself to a whole group of realtors, and I think that the tradespeople ought to get together and do a little more of that. The other thing that I wanted to throw out was the fact that it's not easy getting insurance for a home in Orange County. And the one thing that will help you get insurance is a roof inspection, because that's where a lot of the buyers come from. And if you have a certified roof in good condition, then you're going to be able to get a better deal on your insurance. I just went through that on another property that I own in Montana, and the roof was an issue. So I think it's important to know it's not just here in California, but everywhere.
Keith.
Yeah, those are all great points. And, I would say even if it's just regular literature that, you can send out, like even if it's like a flyer with bullet points of why it's important. Like what we see a lot of times from natural hazard disclosures companies and their reps is, kind of an education. Right now we're dealing with home hardening. There's new civil codes that continue to pass. We get very conservative in California, and we have hundreds of documents to help our consumers navigate through. And so when our tradespeople help us understand all those elements of how it translates into, the things that are changing, to the point of insurance, for example, we had one where we had, it was insurance wouldn't insure a home because there was supposedly mold on the roof. And ultimately it didn't need to be replaced, and they still needed the insurance because it was already past contingencies, and they changed binding it because ultimately there was like an early inspection done by, I guess, the insurance company, and they didn't take it. And ultimately what happened was the seller power washed the roof, and then it got re-inspected, but it had to get pictures taken and sent to the insurance company, and they ultimately covered it. But if it, it was also a home hardening element and fire protection because it backed up to a particular like space. And, even enclosing eaves and stuff like that as it related to the roof, or there's roofing structures that may have been combustible. So anytime that we can get education that kind of translates into some of the changes that we're seeing in California, or like that we have to be wary of with the consumer, is helpful. And then why it's important. Like we get a lot of insurance agents that will want to come in and talk with our agents now because they know it's difficult, and then they're educating our consumers as to like, exactly what you're doing here, but they're doing it at scale in front of a lot of the agents. And whether it be you and, for somebody like me that has so many agents across so many areas, even if you funneled it through some of the sales managers, if you will, to be able to deliver to their agents, making it easy for us to deliver, the information, So access would just be great to this type of information that's addressing these like problems that, you know, us agents are constantly evolving, you know, to work through.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, last question. And I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but you know, if we look at the home inspection industry that evolved, you know, really in late 70s, it was nothing. And early 80s lawsuit, and now like over 95% of homes that are bought have a property inspection done on them. If we look at that as an example, and then kind of, you know, forecast and look at the roof inspection industry, with your perspective as a real estate professional, do you think that the demand for certified roof inspectors and people who can issue leak-free roof certifications will be increased or decreased in the future?
I think it. Oh, sorry. Go. Paul, did you want to?
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh no, I think it probably will increase. I mean, as Sharon was mentioning, insurance is a major issue now, and like if you don't have a repipe, you don't have a new roof, a new panel. I mean, they're really drilling into it super deep. I just thought of something that might be interesting, like you're talking about home inspectors and evolution. What would be interesting is if an NRCIA member partnered with a home inspector, so that way it might be more cost effective for the buyers, and then it's taking the burden off of the home inspector. So you are kind of partnering with the home inspection. That would be an easier sell or recommendation for an agent to their buyers versus you got to do the home inspection, you're doing a sewer line, you're doing the roof inspection, you got to do HVAC. So it can get to be too much. So if you could bundle something like that, that might be more effective. And then it does take the responsibility away from the home inspector, who's not a roof inspector. They'll make recommendations, they'll take pictures like you guys do, but that's not their gig. They're not roofers. Most of them aren't. Some might have roofing experience in the past, but I think that might be something that would be beneficial.
That's a good point. We do have several members who are also home inspectors. That's their main line of work, and then they come to us to get that specialty education and be able to offer these services in their market. They offer them as standalone services, or like you're saying, they do bundle them with their home inspection service. So
Right.
There's definitely synergy there for sure. Yeah, I agree. As we continue and we kind of look at the home inspection industry as a whole 40 years later, you know, I believe very confidently in 30, 40 years that there's going to be a leak-free roof inspection and certification on 95% of homes that are sold. Ultimately, that's what the buyers want. It limits liability for the sellers and the agents, and it puts it on our members. It's a win-win for everyone. So I really appreciate all of your guys' time and effort and contributions. I truly do. At some point, this is, you know, going to be very beneficial for our current members and our prospective members. With that said, I do want to open up. We got about 9 minutes left. Are there any questions that our attendees would like to ask? Try and keep them brief, just so we can get as many questions in as possible, but feel free to hop in and ask a question or a comment.
I just think that I do appreciate what you guys are doing, and I have worked with Certa Roof, so I know that you guys stand behind your inspections, and once they're certified, it's a breath of fresh air for us. So I do appreciate what you've done, and we'll continue to push business your way in the future. And like you said, I think that more are coming. So we just got to get the word out that you guys are here to service and provide that service for us. And I think a lot of the realtors, maybe newer or even the older, don't really know that you have this option here. So I think everybody panics, and this is a good way to calm things down. So thank you for having me here, and hopefully we'll see more of you guys.
Absolutely. Education's key. You know, to Sharon's point, you know, do office visits, shake hands, to Keith's point, provide documentation that ultimately will serve, the buyers or sellers, provide them with the information so they understand what the services are and how they can play into the real estate transaction. But it all comes back to education and communication. So.
Oh, I just want to say one more thing about just trades in general. It's always a constant evolution to find good trades, and some trades will be good for a couple of years or a decade, and then something happens and they're gone. Or so it's always, you're constantly trying to find good trades and people that commit to what they do. So and some people can be around a long time but aren't very good. And others want to keep improving and getting better. So I think what you're doing and forming the organization to try to level up an industry, it's not an easy thing, because if you asked most consumers what does a certified roof inspection mean, the majority of them wouldn't know. So I think it's a big task, but the more that you educate people and help them, I think it can get easier. But I think it's got to be, you got to feed it to them a little bit at a time, or something, make it more digestible for people. Because I guess one point I wanted to make earlier is that roofing is something that you don't see versus painting or, remodeling. Like, you just don't see a roof. So most people don't know if it's good or bad. And even if people do work on it, you don't know, because you're not up there with a drone or you're not walking on your roof. So it's something that's kind of hidden. So there is a lot of trust with a roofer. So there's trust that they're going to follow up with what they do, and also trust that they're good at what they do.
Yeah. It's out of sight, out of mind. And
Where I live, our houses are so close together, you can go to the neighbors and look down and figure out the roof issue.
Yeah, really. A lot of people don't know about us until they need us. They're in a situation where they need us, and then they do searching and their own research, and then they end up finding us. But there's definitely a educational aspect there that we need to continue to lean into, and ultimately that's going to provide a smoother transaction for you guys as well. So we're committed to it, and I hope you guys end up seeing that in your worlds. Well,
so you asked I'm sorry. You asked if we had any questions. Typically, how long does the roof certification last?
2 years.
2 years. That's the typical leak-free roof certification, but it is variable. So some, like insurance companies or lenders, will require 1 year or 5 years, but 2 years, because that's the statute of limitations where the buyers can go back against the sellers and agents.
And then, so another question for you would be, what's a typical or a standard price if you can do that with a 1,500 square foot house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single level?
$495 for the inspection, plus $495 for the certification.
And then how long does it usually take from the time we call to get somebody out there to do the roof certification and to get that certificate in hand? That
depends on the member. Ideally, yesterday, because that's when you guys call us. You need it done yesterday. But within a week, you can get an inspection done, and that'll at least give you the next steps. We do allow our members to kind of have a unique way to expedite that certification. So if you're ever in a situation where you need that done, by today, there is a process there. But typically most of our members can get to an inspection within a week.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Carrie,
I have a question for the panel. So I'm thinking about this through two different lenses. One is for our members who are NRCIA certified, and the panel gave some really good tips for how the members can cultivate the relationship with agents and brokers. What can the NRCIA do as an organization to level up the relationship?
I'm trying. This is what
I just touching on digestible education. I think it's even just a guide, a simple one-page guide that shows the different types of roof and categories, and then what kind of issues, like issues that you have with Paul's talked about this, the channeling of like a concrete tile roof is very different than a composite shingle roof. So that most people wouldn't know or wouldn't care about that. But that's something that you could educate people, and maybe it's a 2-page guide or something that's just digestible for people, and what is that would help, and that would help the agents, give them a tool that they can share, and it's not just coming from them and the agent created it. It's coming from an organization that has a vested interest in this.
I agree. I think that's a really good idea. It would be nice to have that to hand out even to other members in our office, so you don't have to spend so much time educating them.
Yeah, I love that.
And the last part to the materials that I find really important for agents, because you have a wide span of like new agents to very experienced agents, where like Jim highlighted something where he understood because of his experience nuances where other agents don't. And I do think like educating, like, and this is how you use the material in this particular situation as an example, because then they could understand how to deliver it with value or how to explain it with value, but just enough to refer the professional, right? Because that's another thing that I would say is like we can equip agents, we could show them what to do, we could coach them, but execution and deployment are also different, like the way that we measure it, and I have like 1,600 sites we've already done this year, and I find like it's a wide variety of elements that are happening out in the field in actuality, and so that also really helps, of educating them on how to utilize the material then that you're giving them to refer with value.
That's good.
A buyer's guide.
Buyer's guide to roofs, to roof inspections. Yeah, I love that. Well, we'll start putting something together for you guys, and I don't know when, but it's a really good suggestion. And that's the point of this, is one, to kind of hear how we're impacting your world, but also how can we serve you better, to have an efficient transaction. With that said, I really do appreciate all of you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day and a great, successful rest of the year. Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
Paul.
You too.
Thanks,
Take
Paul.
care.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, guys.